Evening guys, Real 111T here, and I just wanted to go over a little bit about compasses, different design features, different types of compasses on the market. Someone scratching their head at the store saying, oh, what do I get, what do I need? Okay, um, first thing that I would recommend actually is to kind of try and educate yourself a little bit. The end-all be-all sort of book regarding compasses and non-military kind of manual for uh, compass use is Be an Expert with Map and Compass by Bjorn Kellstrom. It's like the go-to book. It's excellent. I like it a lot. I recommend it whenever anyone ever asks me. Now that book is really designed for a particular type of compass. We see several of those here. These base plate or protractor compasses right here is what this book is really going to tell you how to use. There's some other types of compasses, electronic compasses, such as in a GPS, and these lensatic compasses. These are two military compasses, but lensatic compasses come in a similar design. You can see several consumer models that are pretty common out there, unfortunately. Usually the ones you see, if it's not an actual military one, usually they're not very good. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about some qualities and design features. The most basic protractor compass is something like this. This is one I used when I was in Scouts many years ago, and I believe this is the model 123, if I'm not mistaken. They have a similar model called the Polaris. Okay, and basically this is a real basic kind of compass. It can give you bearings. It can tell you what direction north is, and as a result, all the other directions. Okay, it can be used with a map. That's really the big thing about these base plate compasses. They're designed to be used in conjunction with a map. Okay, and that will allow you, in addition to just basic navigation, walking around with the compass from A to B, using it with the compass lets you actually kind of navigate in a more organized way over the terrain to know what kind of terrain you're going over, and kind of plan your route. Basically, the compass is a tool to be used with the compass, or the compass is a tool to be used with a map or without a map, basically. Okay, and these are just three basic models. I have a couple silver ones. This is really an old school silver one. I'm not sure whether this is pre-Johnson Outdoors. I should talk about that for a second. Basically, a lot of the more modern ones, such as this, that have the Silva name on them. In the United States, at least, Silva doesn't mean Silva anymore. Silva is a company called Johnson Outdoors. I haven't had issues. I have several of these ones that I got on a clearance at Walmart. I haven't had any issues with them. I have them stocked in several kits, but clearly the quality of the new ones doesn't live up to some of the old ones. Okay, and I mean, I guess that goes for anything, but the bizarre thing here is that the company that made these still makes compasses. They're marketed under either Sunto or Brunton, depending on the model, from what I understand. And you can still get fairly decent, I mean, more modern, design compasses, but supposedly some of the newer versions of the Silva branded ones of these are not that great. Once again, I don't have experience to be trashing something. I can tell you that some of these Brunton ones, this is a Brunton map compass, and some of the features on this are kind of chintzy. This magnifier is pretty horrible from an optical standpoint. But as a compass, it works pretty well. Some other features to look for are something known as declination adjustment. Basically, on your topographic map here, you got this scale that shows the difference between the MN, which is magnetic north, which is what the compasses point at, and the star, which is true north, which is basically, that means where the North Star is. Okay, and basically, whenever you're if you're using the compass on its own, you really don't need that so much. But if you're using the compass in conjunction with a map, and you're trying to, draw bearings that you're taking in the real world onto a map, you have to take that into account. Okay, and some of these, such as these two Brunton models and these two Silva models, have an adjustment you can make to kind of offset the box that you align the needle in for whatever declination, whatever that distance is on the map. And that can change even in one location over time. So before you go, it's good, basically whatever area of operation you're going to be operating in, it's a good idea to figure out what the declination is there, this year. Usually they're marked on a map, and then the map, is that, what does this say, 1963? This is an old map. That's, I think, why they're on sale. Yeah. So that's what the declination was in 1963. Now, how much it's changed, I don't know. But, before I go out, when I grab my map, you just get online and you can easily look it up for wherever you're going to be. You can see what the declination is, and you can dial that onto your compass. And then when you go back and forth from the compass to the map, you don't really have to worry about it anymore. Otherwise, with some of these ones that don't have the adjustment, well, I didn't want to look at that one, but this one here, you can kind of see there's a scale on the bottom there. See where it says east declination, and on the other side it says west declination, and then there's a scale in between. So basically you have to take that into account depending on what your declination is. You either have to add or subtract that every time you go back and forth. Okay? And you can make errors. You can go the opposite way. There's a bunch of little mnemonics you can use to kind of remember whether you're going east or west, or add or subtract. I personally just like to be able to just plug it in. I don't have to worry about it. Okay. Now, some of these other compasses, some other features that they have, okay, you see these ones on the top all have mirrors, okay, and what this is it's a sighting device, okay. You can actually see, if I line this up, if I can get it to focus here. Yep, there's a sighting device there, you see that? Now, there's also a line right in the middle of that mirror, and what you would do is you would tilt the mirror while you're sighting down the sight here, and you have to get that line right to bisect the dial, okay, and then you would box the needle while you're doing all that, and then that would give you a bearing, a very accurate bearing, okay, with like an optical sight. Okay, and all of these ones basically work the same way. There's a little bit of variation in the sighting technique, but that's basically the idea, is to allow you to sight very precisely over distance. Now, as precise as it's marked, the Silva compasses typically are marked in 2-degree increments. It's pretty common. So that's your level of accuracy, which, as long as you're aiming it really well, it's not bad. It's definitely very usable. Okay, now something I'll point out about some of these cheaper ones, like I said, $6. I didn't consider myself to get ripped off, but these have sort of a living plastic hinge, which I know at some point is going to fail. Also, it's not as easy to line that up and have it, it's just one more fiddly thing you have to worry about while you're trying to do a pretty fiddly operation as it is. Okay, so it's these nicer ones, you see they all have plastic hinges. Now, some of these Silva ones, the older ones, the actual Silva ones, are eBay purchases. And one thing, if you're ever going to get on eBay looking to buy a compass, to watch out for is watch out for bubbles. Now, bubbles can form in any of these, okay? I think I've been pretty lucky with some of these old classics that they don't have bubbles yet, although that might just be a testament to their original build quality. Basically, I bought a couple of these for kits, and right out of the box, 2 of them had bubbles. I was very disappointed. You can get bubbles when you have a change in elevation. You can get bubbles if you subject the compass to extreme temperatures, cold temperatures. and the bubbles will throw your needle off. You know, that whole operation I was telling you about where you're sighting pretty precisely and everything like that, and then a bubble comes along and bops the needle off 4 or 5 or 6 degrees. You know, I mean, why even bother having that amount of precision? You know, that's the thing about these ones. If you're trying to take a sight reading, you know, it's really kind of, you know, just a matter of like, you know, pointing the arrow, that's the direction of travel arrow, kind of at the target and then boxing the needle. You know, it's not as precise as having a sighting mechanism, you know, but if you have a bubble in there, the whole, you know, it just screws everything up. Okay, now lensatic compasses also have a sighting mechanism for taking bearings. Okay, and you notice that on this little lens, where the lensatic comes from, there is a little notch. There's also a wire in the little sight window, and there's several different ways of using these. You know, if you've managed to find a manual for them, or you look in map reading and land navigation, I think it's a field manual. You know, this is one way that I've used it before. Basically, you line up the wire kind of like that in the notch, and then when you look down here, you can see your bearing. And let me see, I got it tilted so it's not spinning, but okay. I'm pretty sure this one's okay after that fall. All right. The military lensatics are very rugged. This one here was given to me by a friend, and he informs me the reason it's missing paint is because it was hanging off the back of a Humvee in Kuwait for most of his tour. You would have it on the outside of the vehicle. I mean, you could put it anywhere you wanted, but, you know, whenever you're going to use one of these, if you were going to use one of these, you know, any of these, and you were in a Humvee, the first thing you'd have to do is get out of the Humvee and hike a short distance away so that the Humvee was not interfering with the magnetic field. Okay, you know, anything that's got a lot of steel on it, a lot of ferrous metal, you know, is going to interfere with these. In fact, if I put these too close to each other, they'll interfere with each other. Is what I've been noticing. Lensatics, the military lensatics, do not have a fluid in them the way these ones do. They have air, and they are damped by electromagnetic induction, which is what the damping is what allows the needle to kind of settle on a bearing or settle on a direction in a short amount of time. A lot of the less expensive lensatic compasses on the market basically have no damping whatsoever. And what you'll see is that when you open this up and the little, usually these have a catch on them. When I close this down, you'll notice this won't turn around at all. Oh, it did affect that one. Look at that. This dial will not turn because it's locked down. And then when I take this up, you see it just kind of swung around. Okay. But you see how quickly it stopped. Okay. If you get a cheapo non-damped lensatic compass, you'll notice it go whoa, 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 back and forth. And maybe in 5 minutes it'll settle down and you'll be able to take a bearing on something. Okay? Those are borderline unusable. Much more commonly what you're going to see, if you find something that looks like this for about $10 at the store, okay, is you're going to find a liquid-filled version of this. And you really don't want that because this is harder to use than this, okay? In terms of using it with a map. We'll get into that in a second. But the main advantage of a military lensatic compass, the main advantage, is that induction damping and the fact there's no fluid, which will allow it to operate in extremes of hot and cold temperature. Okay? So if you're going to stock this in a kit in a car, in a stock and forget kit, you know, this one, when you come back to it, there might be bubbles in it. It might be ruined. Okay? This one, you're going to pull it out and it's going to be usable. Okay? Guaranteed. Okay, but you pay for that. There's two different models here. This is the tritium model, which was actually issued. These are both made by a company called Stocker and Yale. The current contractor, I think that's pretty common, is called Kamenga or something along those lines, I guess. It's basically exactly the same thing. It's a mil spec. Okay, so the construction is almost exactly the same. Okay, it just says something different You know, like this one says Stocker and Yale Incorporated on it, and those ones say Kamenga. Now this one, if you notice on the bottom, it's got the tritium 120 millicuries, I believe that is what that stands for, of 3H, which is tritium, which is a radioactive isotope. It's not incredibly hazardous radioactive isotope, but basically it means that the little vials that are inside there will glow for about 10 to 20 years after manufacture. Now, if you're looking on eBay, keep in mind that anything advertised as a used tritium compass is probably towards the end of that 20 years. Okay? I can tell you for a fact that this one doesn't glow very well anymore. Now, during the daytime, it doesn't matter at all. If you think you're going to be doing a lot of night marches where you want something that glows, you might consider getting an $80 glow-in-the-dark one that glows by itself. If you don't want to spend that kind of money, if you think that you're rarely going to go on night marches, you can settle on one of these ones, which is basically exactly the same thing. Military ruggedness, made by the same contractor, but this one has phosphorus. So this one glows when you zap it with your flashlight. Okay, and it'll glow for a little while. Now, really, if you think you're going to be doing a lot of night marches and you think you're going to be stalked by someone with night vision, then this one starts to make more sense. From my mind, if you're going to buy one, these ones cost about $40. And I would say that probably if you're looking to buy one of the military models, this is the one that I would recommend. Okay? Supposedly there's a training variant out that is liquid filled because they're cheaper. I have not seen an actual Kamenga or Stocker and Yale or any other contractor liquid-filled one. Most of the liquid-filled ones I see are, you know, $10 Rothco ones down at the hardware store. And beware, because it looks exactly like this. It might even have the same aluminum housing that these have, but it's a liquid-filled compass. You can tell by the way it moves. You know, when you pick this up here, you can tell that that disc is just kind of sitting in there, bopping around. And if it was in liquid, everything would be very well damped down. You know, it would kind of just sway around in there. Okay? But at the same time, you can tell it's damped. Because, I mean, this settles, when you turn it, it settles right away. Which is what you want. Okay? Now, you can use these to sight to a landmark. Now, if you want to translate your bearing your magnetic bearing that you took with your sighting compass here to a map, you have to do the declination math. There's no way around it. There's no mechanical adjustment on there for that. And then what you need is you need to carry one of these, which is basically a protractor. This is just a little bit more purpose designed thing than that thing you used in math class. Okay, this is, let's just say, see if I can focus it on there. I believe they call it a training aid, graphic training aid, Department of the Army, 1980, coordinate scale and protractor. Now that's another point. You know, if you look at these compasses, they've got 5-degree markings on them, and then they've got mil markings, which I don't know a heck of a lot about mils, guys. I think it's like 6,000 degree little marks instead of 360 degrees on a regular compass. I think I read that a mil is equal to 1 meter at a kilometer. Basically, at 1,000 meters distance, the difference in 1 mil on this compass would translate out to 1 meter lateral distance at a kilometer. Not 100% sure on that. I don't really know what practical use that would be to a hiker. If you were sending artillery downrange, it would probably be more useful. I tend to refrain from that. So yeah, these can be used. They do have their advantages. If you've been trained in the military to use them, you know, if you really know how to do it, why mess with it? But for my mind, you know, I started out learning about compasses, like I said, on this little training model 123 here, and I'm pretty confident with any of these ones here, and with my favorite being my non-bubble Silver Ranger, my vintage Silver Ranger, I should say. This is not one of the Johnson Outdoor ones. This is one of the actual old schools. So yeah, do some research. I don't want to recommend one of the Suunto ones. I know there's a Suunto and a Brunton one that are pretty close to this. I don't have any experience with them though, because I have this one. So do some research, see what other people who actually have them are saying. But like I said, for these little compact ones, they've never really done me wrong. I haven't used them a ton. Like I said, I tend to rely on this one if I'm using a compass at all. I use my GPS a lot, and some people are just going to start throwing popcorn at the computer screen, but using a GPS, having skills to use a compass are important, and in this day and age, I think it's kind of become secondary to a GPS. A GPS though is a mechanical device or an electronic device that is susceptible to breakdown, is susceptible to dead batteries. If you leave it on too long, I've definitely done that on hiking trips. This one uses 2 AA, so my flashlights and stuff like that are cross compatible. But who knows? If you're out there wandering around and something happens, and this doesn't work anymore. I had last time I was out with it, it made me a little nervous because it went a little squirrely. Now I had this with me, so I knew, well, I know there's a road to the west, so I can't get really turned around. I know that generally if I go in this direction, I'll be going down and I'll be going back towards my car. And you could sight towards a structure like a road or a stream or something like that, and basically continue in that direction, and you're going to meet up with it eventually, and then follow that out. So that's really kind of what I use the compasses for, is sort of a backup to the GPS. Okay. A little bit about maps. Okay, I think that a good thing to do is to have maps for your area of operation, around my house, the different property that my mother-in-law owns that we go out to a lot, in case decide I want to hike up into the hills and kind of have a look around. I can have a topo map with me, and I like the what's known as the 24K series of USGS topo maps is what you want to get. And that's a good hiking resolution map. Okay, you have to have a bunch of them because even though this map is pretty large, it doesn't show a huge area. But for hiking use, it's really kind of ideal. Okay. I got various different topo maps that I'll take. Basically, when I go out in the woods, I like to have a topo map for the area that I'm in. And I try and make it a priority. You can usually find one if you dig around a little bit. So that's something that you want to make a priority, basically, to be prepared in that regard. And then another product that I just want to talk about real quick is this Aquaseal Map Seal, which I use to kind of seal these maps. And these maps are completely waterproof, as you see them right now, and you can still write on them with an ink pen, and you can still write on them with a pencil, and you can, if you want, erase the pencil. So they basically just make the paper a lot more robust, and it's completely waterproof. It's almost like a plasticky coating on it. I've heard of people using Thompson's Water Seal. I tried that, and I guess it works, but I'll tell you what, I've already used this stuff. The problem is, obviously, if you want to do a bunch of these maps, you have to have several of those bottles, and I think they're $10 or $14 for that little bottle, where you could go buy a big gallon jug of Thompson's Water Seal. It works. I'll tell you what though, this stuff works that much better. So for my money, I would go with this stuff. I think I got it at Campmore. You can get it on Amazon, basically anywhere you decide to look for it. But I think it's definitely well worth it. Yep, that's basically it. If you guys have any questions or comments, like I said, if you want to learn, this is a good book for the base plate protractor style compasses. if you want to learn about these ones. Map reading and land navigation, not quite as easy to read. You know, it's a military manual, but you know, you can probably find it online for free. Plus, then there's the internet. You know, resources for both styles. You know, so my advice is to buy the nicest one that you can get, and then get out and just try some basic land navigating. Just, you know, go out in a field and try and go from this point to this point to this point. You know, try and go in a triangle. You know, and go this distance this way, this distance this way, and this distance this way, and you should end up where you started. Try stuff like that. You know, and then you know, just read up on different techniques. You know, using the compass on its own, and then the specifics of how to use it in conjunction with a map. You know, which, you know, is definitely covered in this book. So, yeah. Thanks for watching.